know what that means. We are now live on our YouTube channel here with our Tackle Trading Halftime Report. We've got Coach Frank, Coach Cody, and myself, Coach Tim here. Frankie, how you doing on a Friday?
Doing great. Thank you, as always, for having me. It's always fun to be here on a Friday Frank Day. Welcome out, Halftime Crew. Always a pleasure to see you guys. I hope everybody's had a nice week in the market and outside of it, too.
Frank, the only over-under I'm not sure of is who's more popular in our community, you or Gino. I will take Gino for now because he's the talent, and people are always screaming about bringing him on, but people miss you, on that market recap. There's no doubt about it. I get a message like 2 or 3 times a week. Hey, when's Frank coming back? When's Frank coming back? But here you are, and you were never gone, my friend. You're obviously right here with us. Cody, what about you, young man? How's trading doing for you out there in Hawaii?
Trading's been good. I'm just ready to take a nap.
Well, when you got to wake up
a long week
at 3 or 4 in the morning to catch the market open, it does affect a little bit of your schedule differently than me. I love Utah time, Frank, because the market at 7:30 is perfect. I'm a morning guy.
Oh, yeah, it is the right time. Later would be weird, and earlier would be terrible.
It would be awful.
So it is the perfect time for the market. I 100% agree. You get done early, you get done with your day early. It is the right time. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right,
yes,
guys.
It's Gino, by the way, Tim. It's Gino. I'm not a crazy person.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, guys, let's get into the market here. Obviously, markets found support and it held, Frank. This is something you call moving average soup when everything is kind of coming together. Give us a read on this chart on the S&P and kind of help us understand what you're seeing.
You're seeing a mess right now, and it really is stuck in a whole bunch of stuff. We'll call it stuff. That's a nice way to put it. After we gave out that very, it wasn't a clear number floor that we built up all of last week. Once that gave out, it was just what's going to hold us up next. The support zone is very choppy, the 200-day moving average. Now we have to worry about that old support. It was support for like a week and a half, and it's lined up with the 50-day moving average. You have to respect that as a resistance level, I believe. But on the other side, you have to trust the support bounce. It's support for a reason. So we are stuck between a rock and a hard place right now from a broad market perspective. I think we continue to look at this overall neutral. You might be a side of bullish, might be a side of bearish. You make me do something, I'd bet on that longer term support holding. Luckily, you won't make me do anything.
No, you don't have to do anything in markets. When the support hits, you take profit on bearish trades. Maybe you adjust your delta a little bit, put on something that you can find that's bullish. Like this week, Frank, I bought the utilities. I bought some conservative plays. There were certain pullbacks that I was willing to play on that support bounce on a broad market, but pretty much we're neutral here in the big picture, don't you think?
I think you have to look at it that way. And yeah, that was sure a nice little pullback opportunity that developed in the utilities. I hope everyone was able to catch that. Maybe you haven't, hasn't done enough for you just yet, and that'd be fair. But it was a really nice pullback. You've seen great moves in a lot of utility stocks, and of course the ETF as well. You saw Dominion, old D, go crazy today. A little failed break out of its high base, but it was a strong pullback in such a strong sector. REITs doing well. We also had some really interesting post-earnings runners, Pepsi, with a nice little earnings pop. They're showing really well here today, battling some resistance. You had Lamb Weston take off yesterday, take off this morning, and until it smacked its head into some resistance. And you also had Lennar LEN that is still running after its earnings report on Wednesday morning. So you've had some really nice kind of earnings runners this week outside of kind of those wimpy, my style. I love utilities. I always love utilities. It's boring. I like to be boring as possible. So we've had some interesting names doing some interesting stuff. But yeah, it's still, nothing really has changed for me for a long time. It's the REITs, it's the utilities, it's the consumer staples, and take a few shots here and there on some of the more aggressive stuff. But this week didn't change that opinion one bit.
Not for me either, and by the way, stay bored. Your job in markets is not to find the most exciting thing and go and lose your money at it. Your job in markets is to make money. And when the stability is in certain areas of the market, you got to take advantage of it. And when weakness is in others, you play them to the downside. You take advantage of that downside as well. Give me a 5-minute chart here, Cody, if you will. And ding, 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 ding. Here we are. Look at that intraday move here, guys. And that corresponded right with the jobs report. This is the mixed signals in the market that I'm trying to wrap my head around. This week we got bad news out of manufacturing, the PMIs and all that kind of stuff. We saw the bad economic indicators come in. But then today we got good news out of the labor market. And the market can't make its mind up on whether it wants good news or bad news, Frank, because we don't have any idea of how the Fed is going to interpret that. Jobs number is strong. You can see the intraday breakout. What was your reaction to that move?
It was nice to see, from a sense that the market kind of wanted, maybe it needed some good news. I don't know. So, but I don't think it leads too much. I don't think it changes. Like I said, it's mixed, and one report, good or bad, how does that change it from being mixed? I don't, it's the it's what we'll respond to today, right? And that's an interesting little high base on the intraday that's developing there if you're a day trader. But I don't read too terribly much into it. Between the mixed signals in the market and being smack dab in the middle of everything on the broad indexes, it feels like it's going to take earnings season to me, quite honestly. That's, I might be wrong there. But I feel like we're going to continue throughout October to just see a lot of indecision if we let these earnings roll through, see what they look like, see if they're able to beat expectations, how the guidance is looking. That's kind of what I'm looking. I expect October to be kind of like this. At least that's how I'm preparing.
Yeah, I'm feeling that as well. I mean, when you're between two major support and resistance zones and you are now behind you with a lot of the major economic data, it's all earnings in front of us. And Pepsi did start out the season, had a really good run there, but that's only one company, obviously. And we're going to have a lot of different companies that are going to need to come through and show us good earnings growth for us to finish Q4 on a strong note. Coach Gino yesterday actually expects October to bring the markets back down. And then maybe we get the Christmas rally, but this is all kind of posturing as we move forward, right? We don't know the answer to that. I'm going to keep trading whatever happens on a day-to-day basis. I want to get you guys' take on this. I did look in some of the jobs numbers, and the biggest job growth was in education and health services. Not a surprise to me at all. Healthcare is becoming a bigger part of our economy every single year. I know it's been under pressure recently. Bring up the XLV for a second here, Cody. It's a tough one for me, Frank, because when I have a chart like this that's neutral for almost a whole year, but I'm fundamentally bullish on this sector, I mean, how do you approach it? Do you just kind of wait for a breakout? Do you wait for better signals? Do you go pick companies? What do you do in a situation like that?
For the most part, I shy away from it. But with that said, you go and look for things that are showing well within that space. If it's something you feel comfortable, there's always somebody looking nice, right? Looking like they're doing the right thing. There's lots of healthcare companies, and lately a lot of it's been the plans, although they've really stabilized this past week. They've still got some work to do. So I never, when it's sideways, when there's not, I want it to be easy. Healthcare is it's probably my favorite sector when it's in a smooth trend. I love healthcare when it's in a nice trend. I love everything in a nice trend. That's my style. But healthcare probably is my favorite place when it has a nice upward trend. When it's anything sideways, it's just harder. So, that's where, sure, those short-term swing opportunities, they're always going to be out there. Cash flow plays, they're always going to be out there. But to kind of plant a flag and say, yes, I'm bullish on the healthcare sector, I wouldn't do it. Nor would I say bearish. So, when we're in a neutral position, I'd kind of pick my spots and wait for a clear breakout. I always want life to be easy. That's why, utilities have been my favorite.
Give me
well behaved.
Give me a chart on RTH, because education and health services was the sector in the market that had the biggest jobs growth. One of the only areas that contracted, Frank, was retail, brick and mortar retail. There's just not that many people that are working in those locations anymore. And I can't remember the last time I actually went down to the mall, and went shopping like that. It doesn't surprise me to see that trend developing either. Retail has seasonality to it. And I was interested in some of this chart earlier today. I like the holders. I like the ETFs. And it's a deeper pullback, but we're heading into Q4. In my trading career, I've noticed that a lot of those retail companies end up doing well over the course of the back half of this year. Is retail an area that you're going to look into at all, Frank?
Mostly the boring, quote unquote safer retails, Costco, Walmart. Costco, by the way, really nice response to their earnings here this morning. Walmart's got a little pullback going on it too, but your Urbans and your Macy's and things like that.
That's right.
Would I, I'll always trust the chart, but no, am I looking to buy into them if I see signals? If I'm seeing signals in retail, it's almost certain I'm seeing bullish signals in other components of the market, which I'll prefer. I'll just put it like that. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a very interesting point because, and Cody, I love what you just did here. Costco has a beautiful chart. Okay. Confirmation above a pivot here would be even an extra entry point and all that kind of stuff. But then Macy's has an ugly chart, or Urban Outfitters is just ugly, or the Gap or whatever it is. So those specialty retail companies, Frank, they're ugly. The charts are looking bad. They've been going down all year. But Costco, Walmart, and those types, Home Depot, all those types, I'm much more interested in those than the other ones for sure.
Yeah. I think I can trust their business model. I shop at Walmart, much like you. I don't even know the last time I went to a mall. It was probably to buy a Bronco hat in 2004. But I will go to Walmart begrudgingly, or I'll go to Target, I'll go to Home Depot, and I don't think that I'm alone in that. Obviously, there's lots of people who still go to Macy's, just not enough. So there's not enough. So yeah, I'll continue to shy away from those. I agree with your analysis, and you've been on that for quite some time, a really long time, not just a couple of months, and it's been spot on. I believe it will continue to be so. Sure, we'll have some nice swings, to the upside, and little, short-term reversals, and great, fair enough. We can trade those if we want to, but longer term, no way.
Yeah, there's two good charts right there that you can add.
I was going to say, that's going to end up on the report probably.
Yeah, that's Walmart and Costco, both looking pretty strong. I like them.
Both nice looking charts.
Cody, give me a quick look at the NASDAQ, the Dow, the Russell. Tell me if you see anything different against the S&P. Obviously, when we go through our market routine, we look at all four major indexes. For me, the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500 all are very similar. Cody, give me a quick analysis on those three, if you will.
The main thing I see between the different sectors is really that you see the RUT and the Dow obviously took some of the bigger hits, but I don't see them pulling back as fast as you see the S&P and the NASDAQ. And the S&P, being just the diversified sector that it is, or not sector, index that it is, and then the NASDAQ being more tech heavy. Tech tends to bounce back a little bit quicker than some of these other companies would. And I think that's why we're still seeing a little bit more strength in the NASDAQ versus, say, the Dow looks a little bit more neutral.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm still neutral on the NASDAQ. I mean, you go back to that chart.
Oh, yeah,
I
neutral on
understand.
all of them.
Yeah, for sure. And the Russell obviously has been neutral all year long, got major support on all of these guys. But this one, I mean, right there, 14, what is that, 1450, 1440?
Yeah, it's not having the recovery that the other ones had, percentage against one another.
That's right. That's right. Definitely markets are moving neutral. It's going to be interesting scouting report meeting we have this afternoon, boys, where we talk about where we're going to put this ranking. I think a 50-yard marker feels about right, Frank. In terms of neutrality, we'll see what the coaches have to say on the S&P though. I don't know if I would want to have a hedge one way or the other. I want to be neutral. I'm pretty much balanced in my trading.
Yeah, I am too. And I kind of have that same feel. A lot of support to prop us up, but I don't trust the buy, which means we'll take the cowards rating close to 50, as I imagine where it is, maybe exactly 50.
Yeah. US dollar real quick here, Cody. Then we're going to go through the currencies and then commodities as I work through our routine. Nice, beautiful pullback, Cody. I can't imagine we're not going to keep the dollar where it is rated on a bullish side of that, and looking for opportunities to buy dollars and sell some other currencies. What are you seeing in currencies, Cody?
I'm seeing mainly the euro dollar cross pair. Where is that guy at right there? Looking the exact opposite of the dollar itself, and that's because of the heaviness and rating that it has, or weight that it has, excuse me. So yeah, with that easy, breakdown, retracement right into the 20-day moving average, where there's support. Yeah, I want to see this thing trigger Monday, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Crude oil, gold, and some of the others. Let's keep working through this. Let's start with energy stuff, crude oil and natural gas. Is 50 gonna hold? Well, we got a little bit of a relief rally here for one day is all, but that might just be short covering heading into the weekend. Frank, the bearish traders have owned this chart. And we broke out on that news, a couple weeks ago when those oil fields were bombed in Saudi Arabia, and there was this big expectation of a supply disruption, took off, ran 15% in a day, and then straight down like a falling knife, just straight down. Now we're sitting on support. Frank, is that a good enough chart for you to bet on support?
One more day could be a nice out of the money put, but that's as far as I would go. What really, I respect the support. I would never sell here, absolutely not under any circumstance. But if you zoom in, Cody, to right after that break or that big pop, what kind of concerns me is there were two opportunities. The first one, 2 days, 3 days after, where a little bit of a gap fill pullback, nobody was touching. Last Friday, we closed on a hammer candlestick, kind of at the trend line. We kind of, last Friday into those recent lows, right around the trend line, no momentum to the upside. It's buyers have had signals that didn't confirm, at least in my opinion, but they've had opportunities that, yeah, I could buy there. And well, they've not only not bought, but we know exactly what's happened. Still, this is a place, I don't know how long it's been since I've had a good feeling about crude one way or the other. It's been a long time, though. And while the support's strong, and I would certainly not fault somebody for, creating something off of that support level, I think you need to see some sort of a momentum shift, a little bit of a floor, shorter term floor build, get a little bit of break above maybe a 9 EMA or something to that effect before you can start saying, yeah, let's jump into this. You have support, I'll give you that, but that's about all you have right now.
Anybody who has bullish confidence on this chart has a different eye than I do. It doesn't mean I don't agree with the bull put side of it, because I actually have a spread down there underneath support, Frank, where I have a small position on a bull put spread. And so I'm betting that right now in my trade in the market. But man, I don't have a lot of confidence in this. I put this on about 8 days ago or so, the middle of last week, when it was trying to hold that level. I got deep out of the money cushion. But if that breaks below 50, I'm hedged, I'm moving. I might even be just getting out and taking the hit. We'll see. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned because here's the problem. All of the weak economic data is not good for crude oil. Okay. It's just not. And then seasonally, it's not good for crude oil here right now, going into the fall time season. Natural gas, quick, Cody, if we will. Now, Frank, you tell me this, if this ever happens to you. You wait. You put a trade on a product that you'd been waiting on for a year, and then for the next 5 days in a row, it goes directly against you day over day over day over day, because that's what happened to natural gas to me. It
happens, especially on those, commodity type boomerang, out of the money credits when you finally feel like you've had support. Because I feel, I understand why you did it. It was a long time coming before we saw that little break of the 50, which was kind of the signal, I believe, that we can start thinking about it. That happened about just over a month ago now. But yeah, it's happened, and it'll probably happen again. So you're not alone. I think probably everybody in the halftime report probably has a story like that or two that they'd rather not share. Maybe.
I need to confess to old Father Stockaducci.
I was about to say, that's why we have Father Stockaducci, so we can confess our
the problem is, aren't confessions supposed to be private, right? But it's on Twitter now, so I guess
not with the father. The good father doesn't respect your privacy.
No, he doesn't.
Not his way.
That's not his style. There's no doubt about it. But you gotta I like the last two candles. It's not put my trade in the green, don't get me wrong, but it's at least given me some confidence of relief. I'm all the way down at 2, Frank. Concerned about both these commodities, by the way. The way that I traded them with deep out of the money spreads. I've built some cushion in there. It's the way I like to play when I'm building theta. But we'll see. We'll see how the market does. If the dollar goes back up, it even could negatively impact both of these, which is not going to play into my favor either.
Just to kind of thinking out loud, Tim, could there be a signal that develops in either of those that would make you, maybe, as opposed to abandon the bull put side, maybe try to convert into some sort of a condor type of trade?
Yeah, well, I mean, if natural gas came up to 2.6 and kind of hit into those moving averages, right where that congestion is going to be, I would probably sell the call side of the spread for sure.
Yeah, I
Two
think it
five,
makes
two
sense.
six,
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
think that makes sense on natural gas. I'd be a lot more afraid of crude because that's such a big number, $50.
Yeah.
But that just seems like something that you could see. If we could ever get above that 200, we could maybe see a little bit of run. But we've got some work to do before that happens. Although we are trying to put a nice little doji/hammer on the weekly chart here on NG. So there might be a little bit of hope for your trade yet.
You know, when the student tells the coach to follow his rules, I know we're training people well. Justin says, if you followed your rules, Tim, there's no need to confess. I agree, Justin. No doubt about it. C'est la vie, though. Sometimes you just want to get it out there. Let's move on to metals, talk about what's going on. Gold, silver, platinum, copper, all those different ones. Gold, silver, they're kind of flat dojiing today. If the metals market moves bearish, silver does not look good. You know, I had a question yesterday, Tim, do you like silver over gold? And I'm like, no, I don't. I would not prefer silver over gold here. In fact, this chart, I'm much more concerned about the downside on this chart personally. Gold, I'm still holding some positions that are bullish, Frank, because of what it represents to me. But silver, from a trading perspective, I don't have anything on there. I own physical silver. I always will. But that chart on silver is ugly. Break these two down for me, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to silver first, Cody. I mean, you could make a very strong case on both, but in particular on silver, that this is a tradable bearish retracement.
Yeah.
We've already put in lower highs and lower lows. We've seen a little downward move here today. Obviously, there's still time left in the day, but continuation of this, that would be, in my opinion, a bearish trade or nothing. And so, if we can stabilize, what we really want to see, at least what I want to see on any type of these scenarios, if I'm interested in it, the same will hold true with gold, is I want to see that wave of sellers come in.
Yeah.
I need to see that wave of sellers come in. Let's see if we can hold support or create a higher level of support and then break what ultimately turned to resistance. Then we can start talking. That's until we see that, we're not really seeing bearish signals. Until we break resistance, how bullish can we be, right?
I agree.
So this is a very, very questionable looking chart if you're on the bullish side of things in my mind right now. Gold, I do tend on it, and I do think, when we're talking relative strength, maybe there's a little more relative strength on gold than silver, but of course they look very, very similar to one another. Gonna have to let these things shake out a little bit. There could be some really, especially on gold, this could, if you go to a weekly chart, this could turn into something for us. We're just going to have to be patient. We're just going to have to be patient with it.
Yeah, I like the flag up here on the weekly. The long-term charts look fine, but hell, I mean, we might just want to buy palladium. It's been a juggernaut. It's actually, when you look at the metals markets and it's sitting there staring at you and you're like, platinum pullback PA for the palladium one. And it's just a juggernaut, Frank. It's just been so strong.
Yeah, it's just a beast. I don't know how I don't think we can even upgrade it in our meeting today. We were joking last week because eventually we're going to have to start going negative into the bullish side of it because it's just been so darn strong.
Palladium is the Patrick Mahomes of metals markets.
It absolutely is.
Just got to lead him out there every week. There's no doubt about it. That kid's pretty incredible. He's game changer.
Awesome. He is, man. He's fun.
Big fan. All right, let's keep working through the markets. Bitcoin real quick here, and then we're going to get into some stocks. Bitcoin holding around this 8K mark. But again, chart perspective, if you're just looking at the chart, Frank, it's ugly. It's been ugly now for 3 or 4 months, actually, after it topped out in that parabolic move. I am probably the one tackle trading coach who's still a proponent of owning and holding Bitcoin, but not very many of the coaches do. I think most people look at this and just say it's crazy, not worth it. I don't think you trade Bitcoin. What's the reason you stay away from it?
I don't know it, I guess, if that makes sense. I like to feel like I know who I'm working with. And Bitcoin's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And some days, just nice, fun to be around. Other days, complete nightmare to even be close to. Bitcoin is just not my thing. I don't believe in it long term. Doesn't mean I disbelieve it, but I'm just kind of really meh to it. I'm like, it's a thing. It might become a bigger thing. It might not become a bigger thing. And so there's other more well-behaved things. You know me, Tim. Most of our team knows me. I'm a wimp. I like boring. I like slow. I like long trends, whatever it might be. And Bitcoin very rarely fits into any of those categories.
There's a famous saying in the market, real quick, Cody. There are old traders and there are bold traders, but there are no old and bold traders. Being boring and being a wimp is the right mindset. I mean, there's a lesson to learn there from Coach Frank. And because as long as you're making money, Frank, I got a question from a student yesterday. I was just out there walking around, hanging out, talking, and I was talking to a trader, a young trader. And he said, "Hey, Tim, my dad was brought, this information from this company, and they were telling him they do 100% return a month. And all you got to do is kick in a big amount of money and they'll trade the money for you. And they're trading futures and algorithms." And I'm just like, no.
No, thank you.
And my answer was the same. I always say, number one is, if you don't know how to do something, you can't just give your money to somebody and hope they can do it for you. Okay. Trading and investing in the market has curbs. There's only reasonable returns that you can go after. If you start pushing too fast, too far, Frank, and trying to double your accounts by being too aggressive, you're going to get burned in the markets. We've all seen it. We've been around this stuff a long time. So being bored, and I didn't call you old. I was not trying to call you old, by the way.
Well, you would be fair to do so.
Yeah. But being bored and being a wimp is a good mindset. And Cody, I think you had a point you wanted to come in here and make.
Oh, I was just going to say, to reinforce what Frank said when he said he's a wimp, like, when we do our rankings every week, if Frank puts on like a 40, it's like, oh, Frank's leaning bullish. Whereas like a 40 is neutral. You'll never see Frank put a 20, a 10. It'll never happen. He's either slightly bullish or slightly bearish, but he's never like full on bullish. If you get a 30 out of Frank, man, he loves what he's seeing.
It is true. Well, most of the time, it's not quite as bad as Cody makes it, although it's very close. I've been in the 30s on utilities, which is like go crazy for me, for sure. It's the trends, it really is. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but when the trend is very clear, it's just so much easier. Yeah. When it gets choppy, it's not my fault it's choppy. It's not my fault it's more difficult to read. It's certainly a better day trader's environment, which I'm not really one of. And so I'm not afraid to be a giant wimp most of the time. That's why I love breaks. There's nothing in my way when that happens.
And for me, I think what it all kind of comes back to, and this is a more advanced phrase, but that's why I stack theta and manage delta. That's all I do. The last couple of months, Frank, it's pretty much about selling options to try to get theta, bull put, naked put, cover call, whatever it is. And then just watching my net deltas to make sure I'm not taking too big of a play one way or the other, because I don't want to be a victim in the market that is neutral. It's simple market if you let it be a simple market. Utilities have been good. Walmart's been good. Costco looks good. Conservative areas of the market have been fine. Theta's working. The market's kind of getting boring, and all this Fed talk keeps us rattling back and forth. By the way, there is a programming note. In 1 hour, Fed Chair Powell is going to be giving a speech in Washington. I don't expect anything, but yeah, keep an eye on it. If you're going into day trades the last 2 hours of the day here, guys, be aware there is Fed talk today that could impact the markets. Let's keep working here, guys. A couple of stocks I want to get down to before we get into our questions. Some really big gainers in the market: Skyworks, Charter Communications, DR Horton, SWKS, real quick, Cody, if you will. Neutral, big bounce, but nothing really there.
Big bounce, still neutral.
Yeah, Charter Communications, CHTR.
HTR. Nice.
Oh, Frank, that's beautiful. That's not earnings related though. And now we're pressing resistance. Interesting. Do you know what was the news on this one?
I don't. I'm going to take a quick peek and see if I can find out though.
Yeah.
Pushing right up against a breakout point now.
That grabs my eye right there. I don't have this one. I've traded Charter plenty, but not recently. Let's see here.
Yeah, close this and senior notes, but that looks like that's about it. And when you see things like this, it's very helpful, I think, to turn to a weekly chart, because we see that big move. We're like, oh, that's crazy. We can't keep running for 2 days like that. Then you look at the weekly and you're like, you know what? Okay, that's just a nice stock pressing resistance for a potential break.
They were upgraded by KeyBank, is what it looks like.
So ideally, with an upgrade, especially. Ideally, we see them consolidate here for the early next week and then push out second half if we're going to do so. I'm not quite the same as Maddie, who hates when it runs to resistance. but I do like it to take a little bit of a breather if it gets there, ideally.
And then DR Horton, DHI, bring this chart up as well, Cody. Top 3 gainers on the S&P is a big mover. Up at resistance, about to break out. That was a beautiful pullback pivot confirmation, Frank. That's step system 101. If you missed the entry today, there's another entry on the breakout, and both of them are legitimate and back tested, and they work. On any one trade, anything can work or not work, but we love having trading systems and rules, Frank. A breakout here is a buy for me. I don't, you on that one with me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's been strong. Home builders have been strong.
Yep. A couple of decliners that are down big here. HPQ down like 10% on the gap earlier today. Has had a bunch of weakness, just took off. Non-news related in that regard, not earnings related in that regard. That's not looking good. Apache and Noble Energy, kind of correlated with some of the pressure in energy and that space. That was an ugly looking chart, gapped out on the crude strength, and then boom, 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 boom. Here we are down at the bottom again. Still got some room to support, actually. And then Noble, NBL. NBL. There we are. These energy stocks, I mean, some of them, they were looking like they could potentially move upward like crude oil, Frank. But when the chart fails like that, it tells you a lot about the pressure, and the bearish traders are in control of that chart. Energy, you still bearish on?
Absolutely, and very close. I mean, it'll be a 40 this week, Cody. We're sitting on some support and very close to many of them. And so, they're very extended to the downside. So we will need to see a little development. I don't expect to have anything really on my radar on Monday morning in energy. But hanging out, chilling at support, a lot of weakness across the board. We'll have some earnings coming up in these names, but it doesn't really concern me, sector-wide, individual company-wide. Obviously, it does. It's I've been bearish forever on energy, so I continue to be so. Nothing I have seen has changed my mind.
Yep. Boom, Justin. That's exactly right. Whenever Gino moved his mouse yesterday, he's like, all right, that's a stop loss. Boom. And there was a little bit of a gimmick we had going on there. Good reminder, Justin. A couple of charts, and then we're going to get into questions. 2 more that I want to talk about. Apple Computer. They actually put in a purchase order for 10% more production in their iPhones. That's obviously good. It's a reflection of the demand for that new phone. It's like an $1,100 phone. We're talking about a consumer product. You got a computer in your hand now, but they keep selling them, Frank. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. That looks good. I don't know if I'm a buyer up here, though. I got to tell you, I don't like the chart. I don't like the gappiness. I don't like the sensitivity to the trade war. If I want to go long big cap tech, I'm going to pick something else. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I agree. And we're not too far away from some all-time highs. I mean, Apple has been a better position type of environment for a bit. And it's probably still a fine day trading environment. I don't know. But there's going to be a lot cleaner charts. I mean, we pushed through this little top from this last week. I could see it being a bullish signal. I would definitely call it as such. But a tradable signal, it's not too far until we're going to be running into the highs. And yeah, there's going to be cleaner things out there, I believe.
I think so. And then one last one, then we're going to get into questions, is Activision, ATVI. Man, I love this company, and I love this chart, Frank. Reversal over the course of a long term where it was neutral, bearish, neutral, back into bullish. It's a developing trend. Confirmation. Confirmation yesterday.
It's nice. And a big part of it is a classic Warcraft. We talked about it in the waning days of the market recap. Some of us, there's a few of us from the market recap that play Warcraft. So I know a few of you too do. And it's been a big deal. I believe their subscriptions, and I didn't literally see the numbers myself, but from what I read, they had like a 200% increase in subscriptions in their Warcraft, because when you buy Warcraft now, you get the original game and the new game or the current game. And that's really been a strong catalyst, at least sentiment-wise, for Activision Blizzard. Technically, we had that long rounding bottom, slowly but surely chopping up. Huge movement yesterday. Gotta love it. Good candidate for covered call right now, I would say.
I agree. No, I absolutely agree. I like the chart. From a new entry perspective, if you're trying to delta trade that, probably need to get a breakout at this point. You're a little bit close to resistance if you missed the entry yesterday. But I do like cash flow type stuff, equity and then the covered call, those types of things do make sense to me. Activision's been on our covered call list many, many times over the years. So looking good. And you're right, Warcraft is fun. I love that game. It is. I'm one of those subscriptions, Frank. I went back and signed up for Warcraft, and I hadn't played in 10 years. So
they got like $50 a month from coaches at Tackle Trading, from the Justice Brothers that weren't paying them before. It's I like it's a good place to play, to hang out with my friends, and not have to leave my office. I hang out with my friends, I hang out with my brothers, hang out with Matt's son. It's always a good time.
Games are fun, no doubt about it. All right, we'll talk more stocks maybe at the end, Cody, but on Fridays we do our clubhouse questions and our coach's mailbag. What we're trying to do with our halftime report here, guys, have fun, come in, engage, and just kind of give value each and every day. And we do a different segment at the end of every show. On Monday, we kind of review the sectors. Tuesday, we've been doing Delta. Wednesday, we have rotating stuff we kind of bring in and out. Thursday, I think we're going to be doing that investing theory stuff. Is that when we did Would You Rather, Cody?
Yeah, that was Would You Rather was this past Wednesday.
I like that.
Before that, I think it was the dad jokes against Noah. Wednesday before that, I think it was when we did the what was it? That was the one where I said you and Mark and Matt against each other. That was fun. That was fun too. Yeah. There are a lot of good ones that I'm gonna start cycling through once we get them going.
The only problem with that one is Matt doesn't really like to argue. I don't know if you know him that well. He it is what it is. All right, give us some questions, Cody. I know you got some dialed up.
All right, so first question that I have comes from Michael Dickey in the clubhouse. He said, I'm currently taking the Master Trader course and learning a ton. Would like the community's input on strategy. I've been mostly using OCO brackets and paper money on toss for trades using the stocks in stock report. As the market took a little beating this week, I lost several of my trades. I let it play out because I wanted to journal my experiences. Awesome to do. Love that. And see how to react in the future. Would you suggest using trail stops or another strategy in this situation so we don't take as much of a loss?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I also have to say, definitely keep journaling because you will learn more from being able to look back on your trades. So definitely keep doing that.
And I'm not sure what stock Mickey would have got whipsawed out of. There was a bunch of companies that were up and down. The markets have been up and down. Delta trading, you're going to get stopped out in conditions like this. It happens. And even really, really good Delta traders, Mickey, where they buy the stock on a pivot confirmation and they got a perfect target 1, target 2, stop loss mechanics in place. They still might only be 50-50, Frank, because you've got a reward to risk ratio. And it's all math. It's all math, by the way, that beginners absolutely need to understand. If you take 100 trades as stock trades, not option trades, stock trades, and you're going for a 2 or 3 or 4 to 1 reward to risk ratio, you're naturally going to get stopped out at probably of at least 50% of those trades, Frank, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. You're going to lose a lot. And that's the nature of Delta trading. And so my advice would be let it be 100 trades, like Tim said. This was not a great week for directional trades, particularly bullish directional trades. We saw some nice early upward movement on Tuesday before that manufacturing report kind of kicked us in the teeth. And there were a few things that I was able to trigger into that 2 days later were at stop losses. So I wouldn't read too much specifically into this week necessarily. One thing I would say, though, kind of taking it a step further is, and I don't quite understand, but a lot of traders don't really think about scaling out of trades. And I think of Nike. Nike hit target 1. They were in the options report this week. They hit target 1, exceeded by like 25 cents. They popped early this week, and then they got caught up in the selling in the market. I'm a huge proponent of locking in profits, via scaling out personally at that first target. So that can be an idea. I don't love trailing stops unless I'm literally managing it myself, because my rule is simple. Support, if I'm in a bullish trade, I have to be below support on a stop loss. And the trailing stop that kind of doing its own thing doesn't necessarily respect my rule. And so if I'm manually moving it, that's one thing. But that's an idea, Mikey, if you're interested.
Yeah, and the other thing I would tell you, Mickey, and by the way, the Master Trader course is a course that's offered by Elite Legacy Education, one of our partners. But Mickey, I'll tell you, the STEP course, which was released this year at Tackle Trading, has some rules on how to manage your stop loss as we hit T1 and T2. So I would recommend, as well as your Master Trader course, which you're taking from Legacy, I would take the STEP course and make sure you go through and build those rules out, because it addresses some of the, I think, the lack in that other course where it doesn't talk about how to manage stop losses at T1, T2, those type of things. And Frank, I'm with you. Personally, I don't have automated trailing stops in my system. I don't like them. I like manually moving my stop loss as a part of my daily routine, for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and keep working it, keep journaling your trades like you're doing, and that's good data, right? It's, and that's why those journals are so important. Those trades now don't become losing trades; they become data, that we can learn from. And if it's 4% of the time stuff like that happens, whatever. If it's 47% of the time stuff like that happens, well, what do we need to do? Do we need to, increase our entry? Do we need to get a little better confirmation? So keep on journaling, keep on making those trades. I always encourage people to start general. If you're a new trader, start general and then get specific.
Yep.
Right? Start general and then get specific.
And by the way, we had a question from Linda in the chat. Linda is a big fan of Frank, and I just want to read it and acknowledge it. And it was my decision, Linda, with Matt's and not Frank's. And people are criticizing this decision, Frank. There's no doubt about it. She says, I haven't been able to find the market recap on YouTube. Did something change? Yeah, we moved down to one live show on YouTube as we're trying to figure out how to launch other shows and do other things. So Frank is here on Fridays, each and every Friday, right, Frank?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. And Frank also does a lot of work for Tackle Trading. He's an invaluable resource. There's no question about that. He actually does our onboarding for new pro members. So when you sign up for a pro membership, generally, Frank, you'll sit and meet with somebody one-on-one for a half an hour or an hour and just kind of help them get started, right?
Yeah, and so I'm behind the scenes a lot at Tackle Trading. It's really fun to get to sit down and talk to new members of the community. And while it is a lot of new traders, it's not just new traders. We have some interesting conversations for sure. I love doing it. So that does take up a fair amount of my time. I love doing it. Love sitting down and talking trading, and hopefully making it a little easier for new traders as they're getting into this stuff. But yeah, you'll see me around, Linda. I'll always be here on Friday, Frank Day. I'll try to sneak in, throughout the course of the week. I'll smack Tim over the head or something and take his place.
There's nothing wrong with that. Hit me with a club. Another question here in the chat as well. And guys, I'm loving the Friday, conversations, where we answer questions from the clubhouse and the chat. And this halftime report is just my favorite part of the day. Tasha says, I'm curious why energy is typically bearish during this time. And it's just seasonal expectations. You move into the fall, less people are driving and there's less demand for crude oil, and people are back to school and working and all that kind of stuff. And just over the course of 100 years of tracking the data, and that's where seasonality is, it's just a statistical edge. It's not every single year, Frank. It's not like we know for a fact that energy is going to go down and retail is going to go up in this month or that month. But if you're looking at 100 years of data, I mean, there can be an edge in seasonality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the way to use it. It's so if we break down in energy, we know we have seasonality on our side. It's not going to hurt, right? It's not the reason we would make that trade, or at least not the reason I would. But is it going to be, that's another feather in the cap of a breakdown? I would say so. And so you kind of use it as, secondary indicator, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob has a good point. We, as traders, need to get away from saying winning and losing. Trading is just a business. We have good days and not so good days like any other business. I'll tell you what Coach Noah, Bob, says about that. He calls them expense trades. And I don't know what he calls the winners. I think he calls them winners. So it's okay to be a winner, but just a loss. He likes the phrase expense trade. So if you want to go to that, Bob, that's fine. It seems like mental tricks. I'm okay calling them winners and losers. I don't care. It's okay with me.
It's a bottom line business, though. Bob's right. And that's 100%. How we have to think. However we want, we can call it a chicken and a duck if we want to, but it is a bottom line business. And as traders, we can, we're people. We're people first, whether you want to admit it or not, and traders second. So we have to play those mental games. We have to realize that, I always think if I do this 100 times, that makes my, everything a little easier for me. If I do this 100 times, whatever happens this time, I hope it works out, because who wants to, quote unquote, lose a trade? But that's one of my mental tricks that I played early on is do this 100 times. Do I end up okay?
If we called winners chickens, we could break out in the chicken dance every time we locked in a profit. That would be silly in my office. I don't know where I'm going with that. A lot of candidates on the reports here that are triggering. We'll get to those in a minute. But Coda, you got one more question in our mailbag I want to talk about. You're on mute, kiddo.
Oh, I guess I was just talking to myself. Well, the question's over. If you didn't hear me. All right. Tom Lamb said, in regards to the Trading Justice podcast, been listening to the Trading Justice podcast, episode 341, the poor man's covered call. Great content by the coaches. Meanwhile, for poor boys or mans, he's got a couple emojis in there, pretty funny. Covered call. I wonder, are we talking about a horizontal call calendar spread or a diagonal call calendar spread, or both?
It's all the above. I mean, if you do a poor man's covered call, you're essentially buying a long-term option, selling a short-term option. If they happen to be at the same strike, then it's horizontal. If they happen to be at different strikes, it's diagonal. That's what it means. Now, when you're originally constructing it, so what can I do these a lot, Frank? It's an efficient way for me to buy cheap options when options are that dirt cheap and the volatilities are all the way in the basement. I'll go out like a year and a half in time and get leaps, and then I'll sell calls against them to build theta. And when you first build the poor boy cover call, it's a diagonal. But what can happen is the stock might move against you. You got to roll down and turn it into a horizontal. Tom, glad to hear that you're listening to the podcast. Glad to hear that you enjoy that strategy. It's a nuanced strategy. It's not for everybody. Some people just prefer cover calls because they're simpler, right? Mark does. I know that. Frank, what about you? You play poor boys?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of diagonal calendars,
Yep.
AKA poor boys. Much like yourself, sometimes you can find things are really cheap a long ways away. And I always like to keep it horizontal, diagonal. I'm not a big fan of horizontal calendars personally. It just in my head, it's like I'm punished for being too right, and I know that's a me thing, but it is a me thing. An easy way to get some practice with these things is go out today into your virtual account, buy a leap on GLD or SLV or SPY, yep, or Activision Blizzard, and then and then just start selling some stuff against it as kind of a second thing you're doing after you manage your existing trades. Don't have to do it even every day, but it can really help you. I believe if you own something, the responsible thing to do is to consider selling something against it.
100%, including insurance, by the way. I do the same thing with my insurance SPY puts. Mm-hmm. I'll sell short-term options against them just to pick up some cash flow. Like today alone, and you can do poor boy cover call. You can also do a poor boy covered put too, which is what yep, my SPY puts are. Just today alone, I sold 14-day options against them just to pick up $25, And it's only $25, Frank, but it's like, why not pick up the cash flow when you have a long-term asset? That's what option trading is so beautiful about, is that you can buy and you can sell, and then you can generate those credits off of the assets you own, including leap options for sure. Yeah.
Yep. It's absolutely, it's a great strategy. I rarely will have a call or a put. So I almost always have something sold against it.
And a couple other ones here from the clubhouse, Cody, that I want to get to, and they're pretty short and simple. Justin, who's in the chat here, says, with TDA going to zero commission, would that mean bid-ask spreads are going to widen, or does the broker not control that? Frankie, you take this one, pretty easy one.
Yeah, I mean, it should be good to go. This is uncharted territory, in some ways. I remember back in Options Express days when people would complain at $12.95 and it really wasn't even that bad, and then you got to $7 and it was like, wow, that's crazy. And here we are. So I would expect, the simple truth is TD's a business, and a big one at that. And so, while I don't know the future and it's new to me too, I've never, this is uncharted waters as far as I'm concerned. I don't expect, anything to really change.
Yeah, and the broker doesn't set the market spread. I mean, NBBO rules. I mean, they
Right.
have to get you the best bid offer out there, Justin. So I wouldn't worry about it. It's big news. And by the way, Justin says in the chat here, Tim, did I miss something? You put big news in the Clubhouse chat, but I never saw anything after that. What I put big news about was a link to article to the commissions going to zero from TD Ameritrade. So maybe I didn't drop the link in there correctly, Justin. I'll go look at that, but it's actually in line with everything we're talking about here. I think from a trading perspective, Frank, over the years, we've all spent a lot of money on commissions, and it's not zero for options. We're paying still something for the options. But the fact that now you don't have to deal with the ticket fee, you don't have to deal with the extra commissions and the exercise and assignment fees, Frank, they were exorbitant. That's a huge one.
That's probably the biggest one. Now you can, because you always had to worry, you get your spread and do I need to worry about the assignment and those fees? Yuck. And so, it's a big deal for traders. I don't know what it means for the long-term business of the brokers, but I care about the traders. So it's a good deal for us.
Yeah. And Fortino says, Tim, any talks about bringing back the market recap for someone like me who's working a 9 to 5, watching a replay of what happened in the market really helps. We'll talk about it, Fortino, internally. I don't think it would happen in the short term. You got to understand a couple things. Number one, tackle trading is a business. I'm the COO of the company, and also I got to look at the books. It's not a cost thing necessarily about Frank's time, but I want Frank working on onboarding and other things. Frank, you do an amazing job at all that stuff. But the other thing is, Fortino, we looked at the data, and what's really amazing is that everybody who watched the halftime report watches the market recap, but there wasn't that many different people who did the one or the other, but not both, right? And so having the two live shows we felt was kind of redundant for a lot of people. But Frank, the people are calling for it. I might have to listen to the drums of war here and start. I don't want to be drug into the city square for sure.
So it sounded, you might be getting there. I'll be leading the pack. One of these days we'll figure something out. Maybe I can do just a quick 10-minute video or something. I'm just really bad at technology, and so if it's new, how do I make a 10-minute video? The 10 minutes of talking isn't the hard part. How do I do the 10-minute video by myself? That is, everybody at the market recap knows how technologically challenged I am. It's no secret. So.
Yep. Well, I think we all are. I mean, it's really about learning what you know, and then new technology can be a pain in the butt. There's no doubt about it, which is why I don't want to change broker. TD Ameritrade, thank you for moving in line with the rest of the industry, because I know Thinkorswim like the back of my hand, Frank, and the last thing I would ever do is move from that broker, even on cost. But they had to do it. The whole industry, kind of moved to that zero commission model.
That is crazy.
It's huge.
A month ago, if you would have said that it was going to happen, I'd be like, well, you can always hope. That's a big deal. That is something I did not expect to see.
Bears play the Raiders in London Sunday morning. Frank, Bears are 4-point favorites, 4.5-point favorites. Who you got?
Give me the Bears. And I've given up on who the Broncos are playing. The season's over. I'm a doom and gloom guy. I'm turning to my fantasy teams now. They're 4-0, unlike the Broncos.
Cody, Cowboys, who they got?
Cowboys coming up. Crap, I haven't even looked at it.
Are you a Cowboys or a Texans fan?
Oh, come on, Cowboys easily.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I can't stand the Cowboys. Worst franchise on the planet. I mean, literally the most annoying fan base that there is.
We got the Packers this Sunday.
I'm just trolling you, Cody. It's
that'll
fine.
be a good game.
Yeah.
No, but I was upset with our loss to the Saints this past weekend. That we should have won that game. It was.
Well before Sunday, we got 2.5 hours in the market here. Fed speech here in about 35 minutes. I'm going to be out of day trades and kind of just looking at the weekend, getting ready for my weekend reports. And the scouting report meeting, we do it each and every Friday. And all of our coaches get together. We talk markets, we talk sectors, we break things down. I'm guessing old Frank is going to have a bunch of great picks. I think he leads the coaches every week in terms of the quality of picks. Frank, yours are always strong, and I really look forward to it. Cody, I don't know if you even put picks in. We'll see.
I do. If I find some good ones, I'll put the picks in. Sometimes I don't.
Just
But I will be opinionated when I veto things.
I know. These guys are amazing. That's a fun meeting. We will be there, and we'll put out good reports for you guys on the weekend. And if you're watching the show, and I'm going to keep talking until I get this point out. If you're still watching it right now and you're not subscribed to our channel, just click that subscribe button, and make sure you click the bell and come and join us each and every day. Because routine is everything in trading, Frank, don't you think? I mean, just
absolutely. It was weird from going from the market recap where I was, I always kind of done my thing after the market closed, but so regimented. I got to be standing tall at 2:30. It took me a little while to kind of get into a new schedule. So yeah, routine is vital in life, but certainly in trading, 100%. So it helps, and it helps to talk through this stuff with other traders, and sometimes be like, yeah, that I wouldn't expect. I'd come out of the market recap with a trade, the idea that I didn't expect to have. So it helps. So yeah, but do be sure to subscribe. Of course, hit that notification bell. Join us over on Twitter at Tackle Trading. We're always hanging out over there. There's quite the crew of our team members over on Twitter nowadays. So come hang out with us over there. If you're not a pro member, you know the drill. Send get over to tackletrading.com. We'll get you hooked up with a free trial. You can come see what it's all about. See what we got on the reports this week. Come hang out in our traders lounge, our coaches show, our cash flow club. A lot of cool things going on at Tackle Trading for our team for sure.
I saw one thing in the clubhouse, last thing here, Cody, and then we're going to wrap. But this is from Doe Okanzi. And I know Doe. I met him a few years ago. He took probably master trader like 8 years ago or something, Frank. I mean, he's been a part of trading and learning for a long time, but he was in and out of it. Life happens. Sometimes you try something new, you get going at it, but then you get derailed. I mean, every one of us have done it, and Doe recently got back on the wagon, started learning to trade again, took step course. And I saw this comment and I loved it. Because he's out in the community in Washington, D.C. with Coach Emily. And I think he's attended some of the live meetings with them and got to know Constantine and Rosemary and some of those DC traders. Doe says, just do it. I will like to give a shout out to Coach Emily for encouraging me to just click. Just put on that trade. Even if you don't know what you're doing, eventually it will come to you the more you keep doing. Now cover calls, naked puts, and iron condors makes sense to me. Thanks to all the awesome coaches and the Tackle Trading team for demystifying the option trading. Keep up the good work. And just do it. I know it's Nike's slogan. There's no doubt about it. But click the damn buttons. When you're a new trader, just got to get in there and actually practice until you get it. It's okay to be confused. Do not let that confusion stop you from practicing and trying. Because, Frank, at the end of the day, the only way you're going to get good at this stuff is to do it, right?
Exactly. Fake it till you make it. Keep it virtual until you're comfortable, but nothing bad can happen to you from a virtual trade.
Yeah.
Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
Yep. Good job, Doe. Keep up the good work, and great job, Coach Emily. Man, we love hearing that, and keep encouraging new traders. Really, really amazing. All right, guys, we are out. We'll see you on Monday.